Hello and welcome to this lesson, which is changes to biotic factors. So the things we're going to look at today are pollinators, seed dispersal species, and food chain impacts. So to start with, species survival can be affected by lots of things, and we've looked at abiotic factors, how small changes in an ecosystem or habitat can affect a species because it falls outside its zone of tolerance. But they can also be affected by changes to the presence or abundance of other species in a habitat. Okay, so the first one we're going to look at is pollinators. So pollination is really important, and a lot of plants rely on insects or bats or birds or sometimes even rodents to transfer pollen from one flower to another. And some of the classic insects that you hear about are things like bees and moths. And these are really important for this pollination, and we use this directly as well for pollinating crops. If insects were to die out, for example, then the plants that rely on them for pollination would not be able to reproduce. They wouldn't get their pollen transferred from one flower to the next to produce seeds. Now, there's lots of threats to insects in modern agriculture. So some of these threats include pesticides, which can kill off the insects directly. And you get some quite persistent ones nowadays. So neonicotinoids is a really big one that's been found to affect things like bees. And also a loss of wild flowering plants, which provide food for these insects when the crops that we are interested in are not flowering. So these are what sustain these insects all year round. So this is sort of a bit more of an indirect loss, but a very important one. The next one we're going to look at is seed dispersal. So plants rely on large herbivores to help move seeds around. So large herbivores such as things like elephants, rhinos, hippos, gorillas, and a lot of different monkey species are also very important. These are very large animals, so they can eat food whole sometimes, which allows the seeds to enter the digestive system without being broken up. Things like elephants are not ruminants, which, if you remember, are animals that regurgitate their food to chew again. So by not being ruminants, they're not re-chewing the food, and this means that the seeds are not destroyed. And this allows them to, the seeds that is, to pass through their digestive system and be deposited somewhere. And a lot of these organisms also travel long distances. And being able to travel long distances means the seeds are spread far and wide and are able to recolonize or colonize new areas efficiently. And the last one we're going to look at is food chain impacts. So the decline in the population causes predators to decline. It can cause competitors. Oh, let's make that a bit bigger. That's too small. There we go. Competitors can potentially increase. And so we see different impacts within a food chain, and it can be a little bit lateral, like not quite as obvious as you might think. So one example is things like the puffin. This is where I would go drawing a puffin. And this is like a northern bird. It's quite widely spread across the northern hemisphere. Webbed feet with claws, so it can dig burrows. And it's got this really colourful beak. And it's got a bit of blue in there as well. A bit of yellow. Sometimes they're called like the clowns of the sea because they've got this really colourful beak, and then the rest of it is a lovely sort of black colour. So puffins eat sand eels, and these are really important to feed their young, especially. So the adult can eat other things potentially, but the young need sand eels. Sand eels are very, very small, silvery little fish that live in sand. They bury themselves tail first into little burrows in the sand. These sand eels so you spell it right, doesn't that? Are overexploited for animal feed. So this is to provide protein for things like cattle and pigs and sheep. And this means the population of puffins has decreased as a consequence. Another example is things like turtles. Okay, so we got a turtle. These are marine turtles. So they swim through the sea, and these eat jellyfish as one of their major prey items. But they have to return to beaches to lay eggs. And for a number of reasons, including things like overcollection for food, entanglement in discarded fishing nets, so physical damage, and coastal development and habitat loss. The population of marine turtles has decreased, and this means that there's been an increase, so a population decrease of our turtle, but an increase in our jellyfish population, which has impacts on the wider food chains as well. Because jellyfish are actually a carnivore that eat zooplankton. So the zooplankton that the jellyfish eat are eaten in greater numbers by the jellyfish because they're sort of they strain it with their tentacles. And this means that there's going to be a decrease in the number of small fish that people go fishing for. Fish population decrease as well. So it comes around and bites us back. Okay. And species that have a disproportionately large impact on an ecosystem are called keystone species. So for their biomass, they have a disproportionate impact on ecosystem functioning. And some examples of those are things like sea otters, wolves, and elephants.